Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And it's your boy Taco Bell Wani, and we've got some breaking news. Holm versus Megan Anderson is slated for the already stacked UFC 225 in Chicago. Holy flying flipping flapjacks, yo, this pay-per-view is now insane. We've already got two title fights between Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero, the rematch. They just added to UFC 220, the interim title fight to UFC 225, Rafael Dos Anjos and Colby Covington. So there's two title fights. Now we've got former bantamweight female champion Holm versus Megan Anderson. These girls are going to be fighting at 145 pounds. This fight right here means a few things. We were waiting on Megan Anderson to come to the UFC to fight Chris Cyborg. Why? You know, that's one of my thoughts. Like, why fight Holm in a #1 contender fight when you can fight Chris Cyborg in an immediate title fight? Chris Cyborg's been wanting to fight Megan Anderson or any legit featherweight. Any girl that weighs 145 pounds and doesn't fight at 135. We've been waiting to fight Chris Cyborg. But now we're getting her in here versus Holm, which is still going to be an amazing fight for Megan Anderson's UFC debut. I mean, whether you're fighting Holm or Chris Cyborg in your UFC debut, that's a big fight. So Megan Anderson, she's taking this fight. She isn't going to win a title if she wins, but for sure she'll get the next title shot. But if Holm wins, we could be looking at a Chris Cyborg versus Holm rematch, which I wouldn't be too mad at that either. Holm went 5 rounds with Chris Cyborg. And the fact that Holm went 5 rounds with Chris Cyborg, and she's so skilled. Holm has been, in her last 4 or 5 or 6 fights, they've all been 5-round, like main event or title fights. So this is going to be the first 3-round Holm fight we saw in a long time. That's a non-championship fight, but this is still a title eliminator. So, man, this is going to be a good fight. But also on UFC 225, I wanted, before we actually get into this Megan Anderson versus Holm any further, also on UFC 225, aside from those 2 title fights in this fight, there's Curtis Blades versus Alistair Overeem. There is an I believe Andre Arlovsky's fighting Tai Tuivasa, another heavyweight fight if I'm not mistaken. Also CM Punk versus someone else, Mike Jackson, I believe. There's a lot of fun fights on UFC 225 in Chicago, yo. That's all I'm saying. I didn't expect to get a fight as big as this added to it already. I'm not even mad, bro. But we do also know one of the main events is likely to, God forbid, get moved to another fight. You know, we've seen 221, 222, 223. We had title fights, and all of those pay-per-views kind of postponed due to injury. So definitely don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Anything can happen. UFC 225 is in June, I believe, if not July, so still a month or 2 away. But with that being said, Holm versus Megan Anderson. Now, Megan Anderson, if you don't know about Megan Anderson, you're probably pretty casual, or you only pay attention to the UFC. But she is one of the girls that is a legit featherweight that's been outside the UFC, that's been talked about for fighting Chris Cyborg next the most. When you talk about the legit featherweights, Chris Cyborg, that's been supposed to fight Chris Cyborg. Megan Anderson's the #1 contender as far as outside the UFC featherweights. We've heard Cindy Dandois, Bam Sorensen, some other girls, you know, that if you don't keep up with the UFC, you don't know much about. But Megan Anderson is the girl who's supposed to have been signed to the UFC. She's had some issues. After Cyborg won like her last 2 fights in a row, Megan Anderson got on Twitter like, yo, what up, Cyborg? Now it's time to fight a real featherweight. And then it was like, all right, I'm down to fight you. And she was like, oh, no, I kind of got some issues I got to take care of. Cyborg fought again. And she's like, yeah, Cyborg, what up, though? You ready? And Cyborg was like, man, you better quit calling my name out if you ain't trying to fight. Megan Anderson still had some issues. And now she's actually in the UFC fighting Holm and not Cyborg. So that's one interesting thing for Megan Anderson. I'm sure the coach is not going to like that. Megan Anderson not fighting Cyborg, her first fight in the UFC. But either way, even if you think Megan Anderson should be fighting Cyborg first, Cyborg, she doesn't even have an opponent right now, right? She was supposed to fight Amanda Nunes, but instead she fought Yana Kunitskaya. So Megan Anderson, it seems like, should be fighting Cyborg. Cyborg's open. She don't have no fight. Amanda Nunes fights off for all we know. I mean, we could have been seeing Cyborg versus Megan Anderson, but it looks like Holly Holm's like, you know what? If these other chicks don't want to fight Cyborg, fuck it. I'll beat one of them up and I'll get back in there with Cyborg. So I ain't even mad, man. If it's going to take Holly Holm, who we all know is a warrior, even if she had, let's say in her last 5 fights, she's lost 3 at, she's only won 2. She's fighting in championship fights, main event fights against the best fighters in the world. She's not fighting like the number 10 girl or the number 11 girl and losing there. No. She's fighting the top 5 girls, 5-round fights. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't even fight 5-round fights. All of Holly Holm's last 5 fights have been 5-round fights. So with that being said, Holly Holm is a very high level fighter. She can come in here, and if Megan Anderson beats Holly Holm, that makes the Cyborg fight, in my opinion, that much better or bigger, because she's proven that she's ready for Cyborg. Because one of the things holding me back from this fight has been people always talk about how they want to see Cyborg versus a legit featherweight, but it's like, just because they weigh 145 pounds doesn't mean they're as skilled as Cyborg. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's a 135-pound chick that's like saying at 135 pounds there's somebody outside the UFC that's a better contender to fight for the title, like against Cody Garbrandt or TJ Dillashaw, than Demetrius Johnson. It's like, no, there's not. Just because Demetrius Johnson weighs 125 pounds doesn't mean there's some guy that you can sign to fight TJ that's got a better chance than Demetrius Johnson, because he's still got the skills. So just because you have a legit, someone that weighs that weight, doesn't mean they're as skilled as like an Amanda Nunes. So I really wanted to see the Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes fight, which hopefully we still get to see sometime in the future. But all we know for now is we still get to see, or we do get to see, Holly Holm versus Megan Anderson. And I got to admit, I fucking cannot wait for this fight. It's going to be a title eliminator. Winner's going to fight Cyborg for sure. I'm guessing Holly Holm, even if it's a rematch, Megan Anderson, she could have been fighting Cyborg now, but she's taking the fight versus Holly Holm, and I ain't even mad. That's an extra payday kind. Well, if she would have beat Cyborg, if she would have fought Cyborg and Crazy won, I'm sure Holly Holm would have been her first defense, but she would have had to beat Cyborg. So with that being said, UFC 225 is stacked, and it just got a fucking great fight between Holly Holm and Megan Anderson. Can't wait. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.